There's my favorite jazz singer.
Candles are lit. They walk in through the door, clad in silken robes. The lamps
Welcome back to Collegiate Deadlock. I am Literose. Joining me is Spafflez, and we have two more teams coming at you. We've had some time for all the new heroes to settle in. We've seen a little bit of balance changes, and we'll see if these two teams will come out on top. I hope you're having a lovely night. I am. What about you, Spafflez?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. And I'm, super excited to get into this match, right? Seattle and Rochester both have really strong teams so far, leading out their group. And I think we're in for a big treat tonight.
And as we take a look at some of the rosters, I believe it was Seattle who is currently 4-0 and RIT is 3-1. I don't have the exact record in front of me, but it is essentially
No, that is correct.
Yeah, okay, look, I had it right on the money. It is essentially very close between these two teams. It's a pretty important game as we kind of get further into this semester and we get closer and closer to playoffs.
Yeah, and I do also want to point out, at least according to, your average rankings, Rochester, though they have, dropped one map in comparison to Seattle, they have had, more difficult matchups. So, seeing both of these teams come up against each other, we're looking at a pretty even playing field here.
It'll be very interesting to see where these two teams shake out, especially as we get into the draft, because I was taking a look at some of the roster sheets and who essentially they played, and there were some that really, jumped out at me. I saw some, I think it was Rugert had a 40% Dynamo percentage playing, which is very interesting because Dynamo is not very strong in the current meta, but he's got his place with a little Warp Stone, a little bit of Curse, countering a Lash, then and there.
Yeah, definitely someone after my own heart with that one. And there's also some really popular high contested heroes. Like we've seen a lot of Nina recently. I say recently, but she's kind of been the sort of new poster child where every patch, every week, she just always skyrockets to the top of the charts. I am interested in seeing where some of the newer batch characters will land, right? Apollo as well as Celeste will be unbanned this week. This is the first week where they're going to be available, and on top of that, we have seen a lot of really high contestation, really pick ban status for Silver as well as Venator, right? Going out of Night Shift, going out of the matches that we saw last week. So I'm excited to see how they quite slot into these rosters.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to note that the bans you see down below, the Shiv and the Yamato, those are not the actual bans. Those are just the example bans. So we'll get that quickly fixed and get on through. Because I was thinking Shiv is in a very strong place right now. I think banning him would make a little bit of sense. Yamato, that's, that's a little bit crazy. But if we kind of compare Deadlock Night Shift, what we've seen from their bans, what we've seen from their first picks, most of the time it's going to be these very bruiser heavy characters. So Billy, Abrams, Silver, Shiv is incredibly popular. Those are the first people that you're either going to see get taken off the board or potentially banned. Sometimes what you see like a Billy or a Silver.
Yeah, and right after your bruisers, then you'll have a lot of your either your initiators, so you will have your Paradox. Name was escaping me for a second. You got your Paradox, your Bebop, really anyone, Haze, especially in competitive play, where you will catch your opponents off guard, you will go in there and you will, sort of kidnap them and create an advantageous situation for your team. Then after that, you got your M1 carries, your damage threats, and really in the back there, then you'll start to look at your support options. Now that we have a couple, it's not really just Paige or Ivy or Kelvin. We have Rem as well, so the roster is a lot wider than it used to be.
And I think we do have our first actual picks, I believe, not the bans, but Abrams and Billy, I mean, we kind of hit the nail right on the head, talking about the bruisers. It's interesting to not see Silver get picked first, but she may come in a little bit later, provided that she isn't one of the banned heroes, as those haven't been fixed. But so far, everything seems pretty stock standard with these two. You have those CCs, you have those ability to keep the front line with healing.
Yeah, and there has been a lot of discourse, at least in the circles that I'm following in the professional, where you're talking a lot about Billy and the current impact and the state he has on the meta, but Abrams is just as powerful. He's just as strong currently, and with that, time being able to, players have adjusted to Abrams and gotten used to him. So not as much as when you have a newer character in there. And also for Silver, I do want to tackle the Silver issue, because Silver has been quite a popular, first pick, first ban. I think it was either removed or picked every single game last week in terms of Night Shift. But when it comes to the win rates, that's where we start to have a sort of different conversation, and it really makes you question, right? Does a character who is as powerful as this, that's able to be countered by cheap items like disarming Hex, like slowing Hex, and really like crippling their ability to participate in fights, are they really that powerful, at least in the competitive realm?
So far, still not having her place, as it is Geist as a second pick is very, very interesting to me. So we kind of go from with RIT, we go from very late game gun carry to Pocket, who's going to have an incredible ult into that late game. That's usually what we're going to see them. And so those two feel like the kind of opposite sides of the coin, where your Pocket isn't going to win the game for you, but they're going to be a very key part of that compared to something like a Lady Geist.
Yeah. Lady Geist is an interesting pickup here. I think it's more so a read on what's going to come from Seattle. Expecting maybe another 1 or 2 close range heroes to be picked up. But I think you hit the nail right on the head with Pocket. Those ultimates are going to be massive. The Affliction, the anti-healing that they can apply as well. It's just so much utility, and to get it away for practically free, it feels like in this draft so far, is very nice.
And so we do actually have the updated bans. The first one was actually Yamato. So that one was right. And then Celeste was the second ban. Celeste, I mean, that makes perfect sense. Celeste is one of the strongest characters in the game right now. Their kit is absolutely insane. But the Yamato is going to be very interesting. That feels a little bit targeted towards Seattle, of all things. Maybe you take away a little bit of the burst damage, you take away that sustain that Yamato can have. She can be very strong, especially because she has that invulnerability that can get you out of some really sticky situations.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still sort of, flashbanged by the fact that was a Yamato getting banned first. But... yeah, it doesn't feel quite right. But then we also see, Seattle locked into Paradox. Paradox, again, one of those incredibly strong initiators, going to have a lot of value with that swap against people we haven't really seen yet from Rochester. So maybe this is potentially an angle where they can counterpick with the draft a bit. Characters that don't really mind getting swapped into the enemy team as much, right? We already have Billy and Geist who don't mind it at all. Or particular characters levels of escape like Mina, who, unless they get combo CC, that's not going to affect them too much. We do see a Lash from Rochester.
I hate to say it, but I think not updating, because I'm looking, because I don't know if you've seen in the live chat what the actual picks are. There's no Lash, so I hate to break it to all the Lash heads in the chat. He's not having his place in this game so far, which really does suck, because Lash can be really, really fun to see in the late game. But honestly, you look at Seattle, they've got Abrams, who's got Unstoppable built directly into his ult. They've got Pocket. Your Flash ults probably aren't going to be that impactful if you did bring it. I think we saw the final one there at the end. But you'll go through some hiccups. It's okay. It's whatever. It happens.
Yeah, we're just going to redraw the draft a little bit there. Lash again. I know we're not doing Lash. Who was picked in that spot?
say. Okay, so I'll cut off some of the early ones for you guys. Silver did get picked first, so that
okay, understandable. There you go, cinema.
We had a whole thing about Silver that was like, oh, is it worth it to get, first pick? She was first picked, so we'll have to put to bed. But Abrams was picked right after that, so it goes back to the Bruiser. Then you've got Amina on the side of Seattle, a Billy and a Shiv on the side of Rochester, and then a Pocket on the side of Seattle. So already going off those three for RIT, tanks out the wazoo. Like, there is so much pure HP and brutality that Seattle are going to have to work through.
Yeah, there's just so much that they have to chunk through, and Seattle, they do have the privilege of having Venator. Venator being picked in relatively late in the draft after the second round of bans is interesting, because if you're committing to this idea of having a tanky draft, having a character with pure damage, or if you're familiar with other MOBAs or other shooter games, it's true damage, so it does not get reduced by damage reduction, it does not get affected by any of your resists. And it also applies, Venator with his grenade has the inherent anti-healing. So it's a very, 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 very strong counter, especially if he's able to get through sort of that clunkier early game. And then we have the Venator, we have a Pocket, we have a Dynamo, we have, some team fighting menace ults from Seattle, but they just need a little bit of time to come online.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential with something like a Calico, a Pocket, Amina. There's a lot of flash with their abilities. You're going to be able to chunk down HP a lot, but there is a lot of HP that you're going to have to work through. And for those at home, the last three were Venator on the side of Seattle, Mirage on the side of Rochester, Calico on Seattle, Kelvin on Rochester, Dynamo on Seattle, and then Hayes on Rochester, with Bebop and Paradox being the band. So it feels like with Kelvin and Dynamo, those really do feel like comfort picks for Rochester and Seattle, because both Kelvin and Dynamo are very, very popular, and even though they're probably not very strong, sometimes you just gotta feel comfortable in a character. Anybody who's played a MOBA knows this.
Yeah, exactly. The comfort is king when you're in an environment like this, when you're, working your way through the tier 2 scene. A lot of the time, it is about those decisions you make inside the match. Having a slightly suboptimal comp is okay, as long as you're able to make up for it in terms of your personal gameplay, as well as your team's macro decisions, right? Another thing that we can also touch on is, Rochester having the Mirage is going to have a lot of control over these lane states, especially with the Haze. Seattle, they're never going to quite feel safe walking up to any of these lanes, pushing out waves deep, and have to sacrifice things, most importantly, in order to get here and get the mid boss. All of that is, a really important trade-off that they're going to have to think about throughout this match.
There's going to be some really interesting trade-offs, because when I look at the combination of Kelvin plus a really tanky combo, you never want to get locked in a room with a Shiv, a Billy, or a Silver. Now imagine you're locked into a Kelvin dome with all three of them. That's scary. There is a real menace when it comes to combinations on the side of Rochester. And personally, if I'm looking at this, I feel like Rochester come out of this on top. They've got three incredibly strong characters. A Mirage has been decently popular as well. Those three right out the gate are going to be very, very hard to counter. And even though Seattle, they've got the Abrams, they've got the Mina, it's going to be an incredibly large hurdle to get over those three in the first place.
Yeah, and on top of that, they have a really diverse spread of damage types, so you're going to have to really struggle to deal with a lot of these members. You got a good spread between bullet and spirit damage and tankiness, and it feels like an all-around pretty good draft. Now that we're getting into the match, though, we're seeing the lane assignments. It's going to be Shiv and Kelvin versus Dynamo Pocket in the left-hand lane. That's going to be a pretty strong lane here for the Shiv Kelvin, although Pocket does notoriously have a very slippery early phase. And then when we look at mid lane, we've got Silver and Mirage heading up against Abrams and Calico. Mid lane, very prominently is used up by roamers. Easy access to both of the lanes keeps you unpredictable, and you also pair them with a pretty good farm buddy so that they can get the solo farm while their roamers are off doing their job. Pretty nice to have. When you look at the right hand lane, you've got Venator and Mina for Rochester versus a Billy Paradox, or sorry, that's Billy Hayes.
Already a lot of damage happening over in yellow. Kelvin is going to be able to get that heal online. So Shiv, the bloodletting combined with the heal, it's just going to be so much for that pocket to deal with, because Dynamo's slam, it's very hit or miss. One of the biggest counters, you literally just jump over it. And if you can't get that, you're not going to have a lot of damage to begin with. But already Ruger getting incredibly low. He's going to have to back off. And now that's going to allow this pocket to push up even further and give that lane some space.
Yeah, just making sure to get victories early. Shoving the Shiv out of the lane, pushing them to retreat all the way back is very, very interesting when you're playing with someone who's notoriously not really a strong laner like Dynamo. You're making sure to get that damage you can. Although, again, the Shiv Kelvin have side of the map with the tier 1 camps, so they're naturally going to have that lead for the first about 8 minutes until tier 2s come online, and the trades start to happen there. And then another thing especially that I want to point out there is that we actually see Peniyama, the Abrams, invading very, very deep into Seattle's side, stealing up these boxes and snatching up as many pots as they can.
And it's kind of the luxury you get as Abrams. You don't have a lot of CC very early in this game. And if you're allowed to push this far up directly into your opponent's shop, well then why don't you? You chunk a lot of HP off, you push back the rest of your team, and now you just continue breaking up those souls, breaking up those boxes. And already you can see Rochester, they do have a little bit of a soul lead. Not too much, not anything that Seattle can't overcome. But so far, you have to be aware of that Abrams potentially roaming again into your lane.
Most definitely, and it's another thing, right, where it's very matchup specific. You have a Mirage and a Silver together in a lane, they're not going to be able to as easily. So your Guardian is going to be relatively healthy, like you see there. Rochester's Guardian on blue lane, the middle lane, did not take any damage there during that invade. So just positives all around is going to continue to those small leads that you're able to build up. They're going to really make a big difference later on in the round.
And especially if you are Silver, you're not going to be able to get that Lycan Curse on until about 3.6. So you have to play a little bit conservatively, but so far, Marky and Bite have done such a good job at pressuring back Ruger, not letting Shiv get the space that he really wants. That allows them to take those tier 1 camps, shove the lane, and continuing to honestly do a great job on this lane so far. And as we get to hit 5 minutes, that's when those bridge buffs are going to come online.
Yeah, that was a really, really big kill for them, actually. Able to get the kill, to get the tier 1 camp as well next to it. So we have Pocket, very pretty at 3.2k, going to be able to get their ultimate off the next wave, and, having that early Pocket ult is definitely an advantage that you want to keep. Moving on
as we hit
next
5 minutes.
as the... Yep, sorry. as the
Nope,
5 minute ticker really goes up, the Shiv gets caught again.
It's not really where you want to be. Shiv can have a lot of power, but you really don't want your Shiv falling super far behind, since that's when a lot of burst damage on the side of Rochester is going to come online. Your Pocket already at 4.3, highest in the game so far. You really would rather not have Shiv be undervalued compared to that.
Most definitely here, and bleeding out of this lane in particular is quite bad. Your Shiv really, like you said, that burst damage really ramping up against him is going to stop him from really making good from taking advantage of his bloodletting passive, which, you know, allows him to regenerate some of the damage he takes over time. But if the burst is too high, then you're able to just completely shut him down. Shiv, pretty ironically, is a character that's really balanced on Razor's Edge, and, you know, making sure that you don't fall too far behind in the curve is part of that.
I mean, already it's a 3.4. Even Bite, who's 500 behind Marky Poo, is 700 souls above. That's already gonna let you, you know, start to get a couple boons, get a little bit more damage. As another fight is happening over in the mid lane. This has been a very chaotic mid lane so far. And overall, even though Penn was tried to get pressure very, very early on, I think so far Perp has done a great job at just in and out, using Tornado and using Jin's Mark to just keep the Calico and the Abrams at low enough HP.
Yep, and you know, as the Calico, the Abrams are forced into retreat. The Calico's going off deep into their own camps just to go and get some quick farm. There is going to be a good opportunity here for some tower damage from that Mirage, right? Because he is, especially when you allow him to stack up those Scarabs, can melt some of your towers pretty fast. We are also seeing here that it was a close close pocket ult, but doesn't quite tag anyone. And, or sorry, it does tag the Dynamo. Or wait, is it what happened?
No, Dynamo is on team,
Right.
but seems like Affliction
Sorry,
just
yeah.
didn't really hit. And now as you're trying to go after this Mirage, Lycan Curse doing a wonderful job at bursting down the Abrams. Penny trying to ult. There's no such luck. And now it's going to be Bradley falling as Perp continues to play behind the tower, provide assistance for Wyatt, who's really pressuring out. That's going to allow Seattle's mid lane to take those camps and try to regain a little bit of the losses that Rugert has had on that left lane.
Yeah, moments where oh, we see the Kelvin here also getting caught out there, gets caught in the singularity. There's absolutely no chance for them to escape. A good parry by the Shiv, manages just to live just a little bit longer, gets the pocket quite low, but the kinetic slam is going to stun Rugert in place. Is not quite enough to make it out.
Ooh, that second parry looks
Yeah.
a little bit scary there for Marky Poo, but Bite has done a wonderful job of providing assistance, and that is going to allow Rochester to now get a decently good lead. Got about 4K soul lead. Here's where we should start to see a tower start to go down. That is going to be that green lane. Now what can Gaber and Bradley do? Back up, see if they can get some assistance, and maybe just try farming back to get an even advantage.
Yeah, it's really about, you know, minimizing your losses in this case, especially when, you know, you lose your tower. You have to really surrender a lot of that space around, you know, your Sinner sacrifices, especially. When it comes to the rest of the map, though, we're still not quite in that kind of blown open situation. You know, now that the silver starting to come online, has that gold from that, or the extra souls from that first kill, I'm sure a lot of members of Rochester are going to be going back to their secret shops, going to, you know, press B, search up slowing hex, going to search up disarming hex, and really start itemizing against her, because if you let a silver out to play a little bit too long, let her have too much fun without paying the silver tax, you're going to have issues in the later game.
Oh, stopping right before the slam happens. So low, Gaber is able to get out, hide away, and regain a little bit of HP. That should let the yellow lane go down as we've reached the 10-minute mark. And Rochester, that's going to now allow two people to really spread out in that mid lane. We already saw Bite extend a little bit farther, but Rugert grabs the urn, is now going to try to minimize that lead that Rochester have. We'll see where the fight coalesces.
Yeah, the urn is just making its way slowly but surely through the middle lane. The Shiv is, you know, actively getting hunted down there by the Calico. We'll see if they're able to really connect. The Venator, though, is able to stop them in their tracks, at least for the moment. Ruger gets dropped down to low HP, gets taken out of the fight quite early, and now the Affliction is coming. Catcher, who is now trying to retreat for their lives, gets taken down as well. Now the Silver is in form, going to be hunting down, trying to see if they can get anyone out of this situation. The Mina survives with a very, very low HP. Are they going to be able to peel her off? It's going to be a parry onto one, but then gets parried herself and taken down shortly after.
And RIT are able to get the urn. There is a Consulate Guardian take in the hands of Perp, but really that doesn't feel like anything at this point. You're already down a heavy amount. Marky Poo has now hit double digits. That's going to allow these afflictions and burst damage to really start hurting. And Bradley, this could be a pretty good fight if he's able to get away with it. There's going to be Vinjin. With some assistance, this Mina, she is a little bit of a glass cannon, but as Venator provides the help, it seems like what could have been a tasty morsel for the Haze is going to go by the wayside. The assistance from all the teammates from Rochester has been very good so far in this game.
Yeah, it is a bit of that fight had to go on the wayside. I'm sure that they would have really enjoyed to get one of those kills to start on their comeback spree. So now that Seattle Esports is behind more than 10%, the next urn coming up will be a comeback urn. So as long as they're able to play their cards just right, they'll be able to close a lot of this gap up pretty soon.
Oh, and Nox Nostra coming out. Doesn't seem like it's too much just to give a little bit of space. There comes in Spawn Peak, and that is going to take out the Haze, and it seems like Silver might fall as well. But great help from the Kelvin, from the Mirage. Your Calico does die, but it is not at least without a kill of their own. And here comes in Lerv. Does not have the Iridamini, and as Billy falls back, might be able to get away, will do so. And there is something. At least your Billy did not die. And even though Rochester still maintained that lead, there were some consolation kills on the side of Seattle.
Yeah, there's some really aggressive plays, especially since you're not able to quite cross-map at this stage of the game. 13 minutes. Your Walker damage is negligible at best. We even saw the Mirage there getting TP'd over, gets the kill there onto the Dynamo. Surprised that we saw him in that position. But it does allow for a venue for Seattle to come in now that they've gotten those shutdown kills.
I mean, I kind of want to say it. Are we feeling like Rochester are getting a little too aggressive here? I mean, we saw Arcus, then Spawn Peak is able to get the kill, immediately follows, and now Byteno and Island all on their own. This is a very big soul lead, but I don't think you're at the point where you really should be all alone. Even at incredible soul leads, you never want to be all alone like we saw Byteno do.
Yeah, the current situation of the Deadlock meta, especially after the Old Gods update, is, you know, especially if you are able to stomp in lanes, there's always an opportunity for your opponents to come back in. The soul lead's never going to really blow too far away with the slew of comeback mechanics we have in the game. And it's really a lot about biding your time and really building up those advantages as you go. So we did also get a nice quick look at the itemization there. These teams are both ramping up pretty accordingly. Mirage, notably, is able to really match the opponents in terms of soul scaling, while the rest of the team's starting to slow down a bit. We do have a disconnect there from Lerv, so hopefully they're able to rejoin soon. And yeah, I just wanted to take a moment, take a checkpoint, right? How do we feel about the match so far? I know that you said Seattle were looking very, very strong coming in. Do you think we're waiting for their power spike, or do you think there might have been some mechanical errors to get us to this point?
There have been some very good individual plays. I mean, Bytenote and Marky Poo's lane was, I think, great, and I think that was really able to spiral them forward. But so far, it's just been the team play on the side of RIT. I think their positioning combined with their ability to completely burst damage their way through a lot of these opponents is really what's giving them the edge. We are so far away from calling this one a foregone conclusion, though.
Yep.
There's still, the comeback urn is still able to get up. with the strength of the inherent characters that you have with Shiv, Billy, and Silver, I think the longer we go on, and if we do see some more individual mistakes like we saw from the Dynamo, where you're on an island all on your own and you're just going to get surrounded by 3 people and killed, there is absolutely a way for Seattle to get into this, but you're down 11k. You never want to be here to begin with.
Yeah, that is pretty difficult, and we also do see that there are some big farming builds going on. We have a whatchamacallit, a trophy collector coming out from the Venator, so is making sure to get himself well fed, build up those advantages over the longer term. I don't think we saw a trophy collector yet, but there is going to be a longer dried out conclusion to this game. What I'm interested in seeing, right, is a minute and 30 seconds after we paused, there is going to be that comeback run like you mentioned. So there's a big opportunity, a big fight there to see, okay, is Rochester going to be able to deny it, or are we going to start to see that gap close?
Yeah, I think we also saw a cultist sacrifice. I don't remember who exactly ran it because their heads are cut off.
Yes, cultist sacrifice. I'm getting my names mixed up.
No, yeah, cultist sacrifice is very different from trophy collector, because I was like, Venator trophy collector. That's a very odd thing for a Venator to do. But yeah, cultist sacrifice. I don't know how you feel. I'm very glad cultist sacrifice is it's not dead in the water. But from where it used to be, you almost never see it, and I'm kind of glad because it's kind of a boring item, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. For myself, I don't really think my opinions have settled too much, because we have come a long way since a few months ago, where it was built on every single character. Everyone would rush monster rounds into cultists, and you would have a really big damage mod versus NPCs and stars. Everything would die really quickly. With the situation we're in right now, it does better, although I do wonder if there's potential to maybe decouple monster rounds and cultist sacrifice, or really adjust some of the interplay between those two items, because I still do feel like on the characters it's good on, it's really strong, and maybe we can eventually have it dialed back a little bit more, just a smidge.
Yeah, but I feel like if you cut them up, where do you even place monster rounds into? Because monster rounds, it's like when they changed debuff resist moving into unstoppable or spellbreaker, it's like, okay, now I actually have an incentive to run debuff resist instead of just buying debuff remover outright and completely ignoring it. And so if you decouple monster rounds from cultists, I feel like it kind of becomes irrelevant in a sense. Like maybe you run it in lane with a couple things. Maybe cultist risks becoming a little bit more relevant. I think, I don't know. I personally don't like cultists, so that is definitely weighing my opinion on the matter. But
yeah, I do think at the end of the day, though, is monster rounds is a very compelling item at 800. Meanwhile, 2400 for Cultist Sacrifice, you're starting to run yourself into a wall the more you strip away some of those items. And I think that's really where Cultist Sacrifice is sort of that vector that I want to attack without really diminishing from monster rounds a bit too much.
Yeah. I think we're still waiting on the player, so... PC starting back up, he has Deadlock on a floppy disk. So... I don't know. This just reminded me. Did you see that art piece that was like Deadlock on a PS1 or whatever? And it was
no, I haven't.
With, like PlayStation. It's an incredibly cool art piece. It's amazing what some of the Deadlock community has done. It was that glitch where if you got grabbed as Billy when you went into the Baroness, you would just get pulled endlessly when Dorman originally came out. It was very cute. It was very funny, but we're getting into it. We're getting into the game between Seattle and Rochester, and if you missed it, Seattle is currently behind Rochester about 11k souls in 15 minutes. I think we're actually just coming up in 15 minutes with like 5 seconds left. So here's where we should start to see that earn. Here's where we we should start to see some of those bridge buffs come up, and here's where we should see potentially the Seattle comeback, or if RIT are just going to continue that snowball and run all the way forward.
Yeah, there's definitely so much left on that plate there, and there you have it. 14 minutes and 50 seconds. We got our bridge buffs coming up. You got a Mirage and the Silver there ready to secure Grift. And Abrams, going in deep, trying to get this kill, knocks the Shiv down onto the ground. Rugertz has nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. Then the Cavalry is come revenge.
I mean, if your Mirage guy is here as well, that is your man you want to stay alive, but he's able to get away. Bite tries to bring in the Singularity. It's not successful, and I believe that's going to be a 3-4 man affliction. There's going to be something from Vin Jin, but it is going to do nothing but delay his own death. Silver should potentially follow, but Lerv actually DCs. Penny dies, and now Arcus might fall as well. It seemed so bad for Seattle University, and then your Venator falls and things completely fall apart. And I want to say that Seattle are kind of thanking, I don't know, the technical gods out there that Lerp's PC is struggling, because you win this fight, you get the urn, you get a comeback urn, things change completely.
Yeah, and those the comeback respawn timers are really kicking, and I think I saw a 40-second respawn timer of the Rochester individuals. So this is a lot of bonus time for you to farm up on your souls, to get them out of the fights. And even looking, yep, there you have it. Mina with 41 seconds to go this early on in the game is quite something. Thankfully Lerv did reconnect, but yeah, we are going to have to really surrender a lot here if you're Rochester.
And I think the reason why her respawn timer is that high is actually because of the advantage that RIT has. Because, I mean, Vin Jin dies, and I think Vin's was about, 20 seconds? So, if Seattle go quickly, which seems like they're kind of taking a long way here, you did see Peniyama come back online. That might allow for a contest, but due to the placement of the urn, I think Seattle should be able to get this one scot-free. So we're gonna have a little bit of a close game here with a nice clean urn dump.
Yeah, these are the exact sort of situations that you want to create, that instability when you are behind. You want to take those big fights, and it's really aggressive here from from Pen. Gets shut down there by the Shiv as well after diving a bit too far under the walker.
Look, I don't want to say that Penyama's meleeing a bit too much, but look, you run a melee Abrams build, you're that bruiser. It's a very fun build, but I think Rugert has done a very good job at parrying this entire game. Even if we go back in the lane phase, he was able to parry marking and bite node, and parrying is actually killing Rochester in a lot of these engagements, so I gotta be a little bit more careful, because now that 11k soul lead you had, it's 1k. It's completely gone, and now you're gonna have to rely on your fundamentals rather than your pure economy giving you the advantage.
Yep, and we're also coming up on that timer where you have the notorious 20-minute mid bosses, where now that the respawn timers are starting to ramp up in general, not just from the comeback mechanic, you really have to start to worry about what happens if you take a fight and you lose 2 members, you lose 3 members even. You could go into an early rejuve, and then you're really significantly forced to play defensively, even though you technically, it's still so early on in the game. You still have so much safety. When you look at it, still there hasn't the what I like to call the silver tax still hasn't kicked in. We haven't really seen too many of those hexing items yet. So Wyatt is still quite able to wreak havoc on those team fights if she's able to build up that wolf form early enough.
Yeah, I mean, you have Lerv's inherent anti-heal. You've got Toxic Bullet on the side of Arcus, Marky Poo's Affliction. There's going to be a lot of anti-heal on the side of Rochester. And is that Hunter's Aura on Abrams? I don't know if I'm crazy, but I almost never see Hunter's Aura on Abrams. That is Feels like Penlama is really going in on that charge melee kind of gun Abrams, what we saw before the Old Gods New Blood patch.
Yeah, it's certainly new to me, at least. Is pretty interesting. Not quite sure how it's going to pan out in this case. I feel like damage isn't really one of the things you need at the forefront here.
There is that slowing hacks that you were talking about. So
Yep.
there's one of them. And now you got Perp with Ricochet. And he has the most souls in the entire game with Toxic Bullets. We're at the point where Perp is really a threat that needs to be worried about. And Arcus cannot take that. He's actually going to be able to just simply take the Sinner's Sacrifice. And it seems like Perp is going to be a massive threat. He's just kind of able to walk around. There are 3 to 4 people around him. He's got to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, as the game continues to go on now, this Mirage, now that they have the Ricochet, the farming speed is significantly increased. You have so many strong items in this map, like Inhibitor, you've got Silencer, you've got the Toxic Bullets that already purchased. There's going to be so much utility and damage coming out from this kid. He's going to get knocked down extremely low, the counter spell there, just to, you know, drag out their life a little bit longer, but it was ultimately a nice punish there from Rochester. There's going to be a play onto Lurv on the other side of the map, though, taking down that Venator, and we're looking at a Walker for Walker trade, potentially.
One that's going to be looking pretty good. You clean up that side. Unfortunately for Gaver, the Urn is going to be on the opposite side, one that is completely controlled by Rochester. And their Guardian is still up as well. So that's another area where you're going to have a little bit of the tower defense. You've got that shop. We just saw another Walker go down on the side of Seattle. Had a little bit of skin in the game, but it seems like with Urn, they're playing it very conservatively, potentially dropping it in their base just to deny it from Rochester.
Yeah, the buy one get one deal is really strong with this one. Rochester able to get, you know, both of the Walkers there just for the price of one. Looking pretty happy there, especially now that the item slots are not that much of a limitation for them anymore. What is interesting, though, Seattle is looking to really play off the back of this Urn. At first, I thought they were going to take the Urn, they were going to sit with it in their base, and they were going to really prevent Rochester from being able to make a play with it too early. But now, walking it up through the lane, they're starting to think, what if we conduct this?
Yeah, well, all this is happening. There's a 1v1 happening in the opposite side of the lane. It's very crucial, but Venator actually joining Arcus, so that takes away one less body on the side of the actual Urn push. That could be pretty devastating as the rest of Seattle are trying to push back. A pretty good Singularity combined with an Arctic Beam. Down goes one on either side, and Affliction is going to be able to hit multiple people all at once. That's a lot of healing reduction. Very, very good if they can take out the tanks, but down goes the tank on the side of Rochester. Here's where that Silver is really going to start packing a punch, and if Arcus can potentially get that Mirage, this fight could change on a dime. There's so many critical portraits on Seattle, but nobody can capitalize on them. It's just Arcus up against the world, and it seems like Marky Boo might come in too late for the potential save.
Yeah, overcommitting too many people onto that left side there. Rochester made a fatal error, and they had some really strong plays. They had the Singularity that caught a couple. There was the Affliction as well, but Dynamo dying at Singularity, cutting that short, asking his team to change the world, but the only thing they did to change it was to fall over.
I think one of the things about that fight, I don't think it had a definitive winner or a loser, which Rochester wants. They're still at about a 7k soul lead, which at this point in the game isn't a crazy amount, but if you're just able to keep that map control, as we do see with that Urn, with that Guardian, you might have something going. As so far, Wyatt trying to see if they can proc that Lycan Curse, potentially get something up. There's going to be that Lycan Curse combined with the Calico, but it's not anything more than just pushing back the rest of the team as we see yet another Urn fight. It's actually over mid this time.
Yeah, while that scuffle was happening over in the left side lane, we had Pen Llama, who was escorting the Urn over but unfortunately he did get caught near his own Guardian, and now it's going to be Seattle that are here running that last mile. Bradley gets dropped down to a really low amount of HP, is forced to hide before their eventual retreat as long as they don't get caught. And now it's the Calico here, just the constant threat. Having the 2 apply melee damage and being able to knock it down without the need for a heavy hit anymore, she's going to be pretty capable at this tonight.
There was a point where Seattle did outnumber Rochester. That time has passed, and Arcus has to be very careful. Way out, and have to fall back as Arcus to get a little bit of burst damage. Nothing of the sort. But there's so much of this urn is not actually fighting. It's context around the urn, but we're just seeing Vinjin back up a little bit, then go for the dunk. That's going to be a huge amount of souls, and there's not an actual fight for it. Maybe Ruger dies. I think if you're Seattle, that's a fine trade.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure what Ruger's positioning in the overall context of that fight really contributed. Though maybe there was a situation where he had to be up that far up in the enemy jungle just to make sure that they don't really walk in and contest. But ultimately it was a really clean urn, and even after losing Ruger, you're still pretty happy with that outcome. Now you're looking at the rest of your team, still being 4K behind, but only being 4K behind. It's not that bad overall. You got your all the shiny benefits that come with the urn. You got your extra what's it called? Your extra boon and all of that. You're pretty happy.
Great little 1-2 combo. We've seen Perp get caught out before. Yet again, it just costs a Seattle team that seems like they might have something going, but then one person gets caught out, and now the whole team scatters all around, and you're having to come together and try to fight for map control, something that Rochester have done a great job at pushing back. I mean, they've grabbed urn. Perp is down for their 20 seconds. That's going to give them an advantage in this fight.
Yeah, who needs marathon when you've got urn running across the map? It feels like it has been a constant, but it is also just one of our only objectives that we have in this game. So you have the Dynamo here speeding through at the speed of sound, getting to that drop-off, but we do have a strong presence again from Seattle. The Shiv is going to get tossed backwards. The urn is dropped right at the steps, and now we are going to have a big trade. A huge Kelvin Dome trapping multiple members of that team is going to be a massive bag drop to Ruger, finally able to get that execute and the reset off of their ultimates, but then Gobber finally falls at the heels, and you have the Kelvin as well out of the fight.
Yeah, but Seattle have pushed back Rochester a little bit. You have Seattle and Perp kind of caught on their own, though, and it seems like Arcus's kill onto Perp, that's going to potentially allow an urn dunk. No, actually, the urn has decided to walk away. It's got a little bit of a mind of its own, so even though nobody's going to get the sole benefit from it, there is a very clear difference when it comes to who is alive on the Rochester, and that's going to allow them to get mid-boss.
Yeah, mid-boss, very, very, very good for them, and again, there's not really too strong of a contest that Seattle can have if they want to walk in here. We do notice here the urn was brought through as well, just to have a quick drop-off point right after. Having your 3 Regios at this stage of the game is going to allow you to pretty aggressively push after that final walker that you need, and potentially as well just start cracking open those base guardians. One thing that Seattle have done really well so far is they've been managing their wave states quite good. So it is going to be a matter of time before Rochester, they have to go back to their base. They have to clear out that, I think, 2 waves that are crashing into their base guardians on both ends of the map. And then they can finally start to walk on that walker, and that's already going to take down your relatively short Regio timer of, I think, 4 minutes. They're going to cut it down to about 2, where you can actually have, actionable combat on the map.
Yeah, but that's still time for Rochester to actually make a play off of that. You already see half the lanes getting pushed up, and I mean, not even 2 minutes taken off the board, maybe 30 seconds off of that. And if they play this right, They could have that left side walker taken down, could push for a base guardian depending on how the fights go. For me, I'm looking at those afflictions. Marky Poo has been very critical in these fights because he's been able to shut down a lot of the healing on the side, because that is what tanks like Shiv, Silver, and Billy really do rely off. But already, it's Arcus, 38k. By and large, the sole leader in the entire game, having to back off just a little bit. The Lycan Curse, not an opportune time, honestly, for Wyatt to get that off. So that's going to go on that 30-second cooldown. That's going to be a little bit more time before Silver can actually be a true threat in the fight. But it's time that Rochester is giving Seattle.
Yep, and Seattle, they're doing their best here to stall out for time, but even if they do drop down this Calvin Dome, there's not really too much they're going to be able to do. They have the advantage with the, Defender resists, but the Walker does fall pretty quickly. Warpstone out from Penlum is not quite going to catch anybody. The Affliction goes through. The Billy drops down first, and now it is a full retreat. The Haze the fall, the Silver net at her Lycan Curse cooldown, and you're able to play very aggressively in their face. There's not really too much that Seattle can do to retaliate, and it's going to be a full walk on the base.
Oh, and you only dropped one Rejuve Crystal after all that. I mean, it's honestly might be time to call it. You're this late in the game, 30 minutes, 30k down. Honestly, you're going to be able to probably get both shrines and potentially a patron drop. It's looking very, very scary for Seattle at this late in the game. And now an incredibly late kill onto Wyatt on the Silver. That's about another 30-second cooldown. I think we're just kind of staring the result right in the face here.
Yeah, that stagger kill is a big nail in the coffin, making sure that Seattle aren't quite able to contest them just yet. But with the timer ticking down, it is going to be a bit of a closer race to see if they can take down this patron. Rochester, they have to make a decision. Do they want to stay for it? It looks like the answer is yes. And, Seattle, they don't quite have the respawn timers lining up in a way.
Crystals, though.
Yep.
I think they're wanting to play conservative, though. Buy in the shop. Everybody likes to buy.
Yeah, the big onus here is really on Rochester. Is really on Seattle. They, being this far behind when you're down 30k, you need to make these big plays. You need to stack yourselves together. You need to find outliers. You need to create disturbances on the map and make those big gamble plays. Because otherwise, with the access to farm and everything that Rochester has, they're just going to continue to snowball this lead onwards and onwards.
And now Arcus has cheat death as well. So not only are you going to have to somehow find a way to corral Mina from the skies, you're essentially going to have to do it twice. That's what that soul lead is going to give you. I think we might have a fight around the urn. It's where you see Bite and Spawn playing around. And then here comes Mark, here comes Lurv. Singularity is going to be online, and I think that's exactly what Bite Node is going to play for. Playing very, very patient. It's actually Spawn Peak drawing the ire on the right side. Urn is going to get deposited, but I don't think Rochester are worried about that. They're worried about finishing the game right here, right now. And as I say that, both teams just walk away from each other. It seems like Rochester are actually content on accepting that they're not really going to walk away with the fight then and now and go back to farming.
Headed to Broadway.
Yeah, not really being able to get that fight around the urn does feel bad for Rochester, as now they're forced to, back all the way up. You got to play your time. You have mid-boss spawning in a minute and a half. That's going to be a pretty definitive way to end the game. Although Seattle does have some pretty big abilities to play around it. So if you're able to get that Kelvin down in the pit, the Billy, the Silver as well, you're going to have a really messy fight, and that's something that Rochester would rather avoid.
I'm just trying to look at ways that they can potentially shut down the Mina. really isn't anything. And now Hayes caught all alone against a Calico. Unstoppable proc, Fleetfoot proc. The rest of the Seattle is there to help, and Affliction is popped out. That's going to be 2 people it gets. This Pocket just tries to flee backwards. This is Abrams being chain ganged, and everybody on Seattle is there. But Abrams popping that ult brings the house down. A singularity as well. A charge. There is no chance for Seattle. 3 players go down. Perp falls, and that should be Rochester coming together. It took a little bit of time, but a chain of ults. The singularity, the slam coming in from Pen Llama. There's not much you can do against a combo of those 2.
Yeah, Seattle, they were onto something. They thought they had that pick onto Pen Llama, but Pen Llama said, call an ambulance, but not for me. This is a huge, I think it was a 4 or 5 man singularity. Rochester able to walk away with this with map 1 of this series, the best of 2. And yeah, I think it was a pretty overall well-played game for them. And, going into the next map, I mean, what are you looking for? What are you expecting?
It feels like your silver really didn't have a golden opportunity a lot of the times. It felt like, Shiv was fighting from behind very early on. The chain gang got a couple of uses, but I think it's just the constant status effects that RIT was able to keep on. I mean, you look at Arcus, constantly in the air, constantly applying love bites, Nox Nostra. There's so many things that Seattle have to worry about. Singularity, slam, and I just don't think they were able to really counter any of them. There was no way to shut down the Mina. There was no way to stop the Abrams or the Dynamo when they were in their most powerful states.
Yeah, and honorable mention, of course, shout out to the Mirage from Perp. It was really starting to get to that point, able to have a lot of impact. Had the Ricochet, had the Toxic Bullets quite early, but the game sort of slipped out of their control. Seattle had a lot of close moments. They were able to close that Soul lead once or twice, but ultimately Rochester, they're just able to, through their play on the map, through their play in the team fights, you continue to build that lead back up for themselves. And every time they closed that gap, it was just another opportunity for them to again exploit out in front.
And you had, your soul leader like Perp. I think it was 2 times where Perp would get caught out after what felt like it was the perfect opportunity for Seattle to start fighting their way back, and then Perp would be all alone and would get caught out, and that momentum that you start to build up would just completely fall apart right before your eyes. I think there were some moments as well throughout the entire game that just felt like anytime Seattle started going, there was just one little slip up that just stopped them from really clawing back.
Yeah, having your Mirage always caught, always on the respawn timer does feel bad, and it does also feel a little bit awkward to have Mirage as your soul leader, because you do naturally want to fight around him. You want to have him present for all of your team fights, but that also sort of goes against what the character is very capable of doing, especially on their side lanes with the ultimate fights later on. So a little bit of a dual identity there, but I don't think it was necessarily the be-all, end-all, the deal breaker in the situation. So we're going to be going off quickly over to a break, and then when we're back, we're going to have match 2 of this best of 2 series. Thank you.